What is happening, everybody? Joelsuf coming your way. This is another episode of Joelsuf Remembers, where I take specific wrestling shows that I remember very fondly and celebrate their anniversaries of sorts. Today I'm going to be talking about Raw from August 1st, 2005, 15 years ago. So this was a pretty, I wouldn't say a special episode of Raw, but there are a few things, big events that took place, big segments that took place on this episode. What I want to do first, of course, like every other episode of Joelsuf Remembers, I'll be talking about my own position in life while this was going on, while this show was taking place, where I was in my own life and stuff like that, and kind of just remember back on that fondly, and then talk about the show itself, if I can remember it, and then, of course, talk about the two big events that took place and the stuff surrounding both of those. As you can see right there, this episode of Raw was about two things. It was about Matt Hardy coming back from a year off. Half of that year was him just being injured, and another half was him being fired because he started talking about his personal life with Lita on his own website, and WWE saw that and they fired him. And the other one, as you can see on the right, is Hulk Hogan versus Shawn Michaels, which, from what I've heard, was going to originally be like a best of three series in their program, and it was not meant to be. And Hogan wanted to just win one match, and then that was going to be it. You know what I mean? And so that caused Shawn Michaels to be pretty upset with Hogan. There's this one channel, it's gone now. It got taken down just because it had a lot of footage on it called Reliving Wrestling, and it had a really good short documentary about the feud. But yeah, so I'll talk about these things later on here in a few minutes, but I just wanted to cover the two major things that took place on, and one minor thing that took place on August 1st, 2005, Raw. So, what was I going through in August of 2005? A few things. I remember watching this Raw in my college apartment, in my apartment on campus, because I thought I was done with college in April of 2005, but I flunked one of my classes, so I had to take a different class to graduate. My dad was not happy about it, but I was able to get in during the summer, during the back half of summer semester, and this was when my dad was going in for cancer treatments. He got stomach cancer he was probably diagnosed with stomach cancer in like late 2004, but he didn't really tell me about it until like February 2005. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to just take time off until the fall and then finish up college in fall 2005. Prolong the magic, you know what I mean? Like, be that professional student. But I didn't think my dad had that much time to live. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and finish this degree. I can always just go back later and just get a different degree or something like that, whatever. But felt like I was not done with college, and that's a different, I'll talk about that. That's going to be a real more serious video / podcast / whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's a pretty serious thing I want to talk about. But so I said to myself, okay, let me just go in for summer semester, take a different class, do good in it, and then finish my degree out. This way my dad can be proud that I at least got a college degree. It was a really pointless college degree. It was in social science. I was only going to college just to party, and it didn't really do much of that. I mean, I did a little bit of that, but not really. But yeah, so this was like about a week before I finished college. It was the final episode of Monday Night Raw that I was going to watch in my college apartment, in my apartment on campus. So I celebrated, and I got pizza. Actually, no, there was a episode of Impact. There was Impact. That's right. There was Impact. There was one more episode of Impact that I was going to watch before finishing everything up. That was on the 4th, obviously. It was Thursday night. So, yeah. So, but I don't remember that real well. I do remember Raven being the champion on TNA Wrestling, and I really should have talked about that at Slammiversary '05. I really should have done a remembers on that, but maybe I'll do a remembers on the triple threat match between what's it called, Daniels, Styles, and Samoa Joe, which I think took place a little bit before this, a little bit after it. I don't really remember. I do remember it was in the summer of '05, whatever. Yeah, so I was watching a lot of wrestling and stuff like that. So, and yeah, so this was the final, and I remember very fondly. I remember I just blocked out time in my day to do this because I heard I was on in wrestling communities and posting a lot in those wrestling communities back then. And back before you had Squared Circle on Reddit and other wrestling message boards and communities, the only real wrestling community that I was a part of was on Game FAQs, the video game website where you can read all kinds of print of walkthroughs of video games, and they had message boards. They had communities for wrestling, for Dragon Ball, and other stuff like that. And again, this is 2005, so this is way before Reddit. This is way before Discord channels and social media groups and stuff like that. Like Facebook just like launched like their group function in 2005. So, I'd say with MySpace, there weren't any MySpace groups and stuff. Yeah, this was back when MySpace was still a thing. And it's funny because these wrestling performers had MySpace pages too. So you would go on Matt Hardy's MySpace and like some of he would have like, and this is what got him fired. I think there was one night, or there was one picture on his MySpace page where it had like a cardboard cutout of Lita and had it with like her head chopped off or something like that. It was really crazy how upset that Matt Hardy was. So yeah, and in fact, WWE has a show called Rivalries on their network where it details. It's a really good documentary kind of show about Matt Hardy and Edge and how their rivalry was like really beyond personal around this time. So let's go through the show itself. It starts, I believe, with a John Cena segment, or I think it was Eric Bischoff. I don't remember. One of them come out. Either Bischoff, Jericho, or Cena come out. And this was when they were trying to book Cena as like a Steve Austin type character, where he was just making life like really horrible for Eric Bischoff and stuff like that. Hold on one second. There we go. Much better. Sorry, it's just closing the door. This way, no noise. Anyways, so this was back when they were booking John Cena to be like Austin was in 99, 98. So, and they have like there's like some kind of segment involving one of the three, Cena, Jericho, or Bischoff, and this was also setting up for Jericho versus Cena at SummerSlam 2005, and they had a match. Cena had a match against Carlito Caribbean Cool, with Jericho as the special guest referee, and Carlito won. So now Carlito, that was apparently Bischoff made that like a number one contender match. So now Carlito, it's going to be the same match, only with the title on the line now, with John Cena's WWE title on the line. So that's like the main event of the night, which wasn't really the main event of the night. By the way, this show took place in the Mohegan Sun Arena in, I think, Connecticut or something like that. I don't know. In the Mohegan Sun Arena. And the crowd was pretty much dead. It was not a good crowd at all. And yeah, in any other crowd, it would have been way better, but not in this crowd. So That segment ends, and then you have Shelton Benjamin and the Big Show. Big Show looks horrible in 2005 and in 2006. He was in the worst shape of his life. Was in desperate need of some time off, and he would get that time off going into 2007. I think he'd take the entire year of 2007 off, which was nice. Needed that for sure. And yeah, it was a Benjamin and Big Show against Chris Masters and Gene Snitsky. Yeah. So, and this match took a lot longer than it should have. This was when Masters went beyond his he stopped doing his Master Lock challenge and he started getting put in matches. And it's also when he was like really like roided up badly, and you could tell his work was not that great. And Snitsky was kind of also one dimensional, you know. And Shelton Benjamin being like the smallest guy there and the most athletic. You know what I mean? Show looked okay in the ring, but you could definitely tell he was getting burnt out. You could definitely tell he was getting out of shape. And yeah, so it was a match. Nothing really that great. After this, we have, I think after this we have a vignette that says that Vince McMahon's going to be coming out to make an announcement. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen, because I was also chatting with the message board too while this was going on when I was watching this, and we all put our spoilers, and I said, oh, guess who's going to be coming back? And everyone's like, yep, absolutely. And yeah, so they cut the commercial. After the commercial, let's see, I think they do the Diva search after the commercial, if I'm not mistaken, and the commentary was J.R. King and Coach, of course, is like the bad guy in this, and King is also rooting for bad guys in 2005, which I forgot about. I think he starts rooting for good guys in like 2006 or so, 2007-ish, something like that. But in 2005, he was still rooting for the bad guys. And yeah, so they have the Diva search. The Diva search, man. The Diva search did not age well. It was tasteless right from the start. They have these girls in like this bounce house thing, and they're jousting, and Rob Schneider comes out because Deuce Bigelow, the sequel to Deuce Bigelow was coming out, and so they have to have Rob Schneider come out and, you know, talk about his movie and stuff, and Coach hits on one of them. It wasn't Ashley Massaro, who would eventually win, and rest in peace, Ashley Massaro. Jesus, man, that's really unfortunate that she died. And to be really honest, of all the Diva Search ladies, I think she really worked the hardest to prove that she wasn't just, like a sex worker. You know what I mean? Like, she wanted to prove that she could actually go and have some decent matches. Her and Candice Michelle. But Candice Michelle, of course, was just part of the Diva Search. She didn't win it. You know what I mean? But whatever. Yeah, so, and like Coach like hits on one of the girls, and the girl like ditches Coach and gets with Rob Schneider. And it's really dumb and stupid, and I did not like the Diva Search back 15 years ago, even when I was a 23-year-old horny dude. And I looked, when I watched this Raw to review it, when I watched it back, I'm looking at the Diva Search and I'm like, even as a 38-year-old horny guy, I'm like, no, don't want this in my wrestling show, please. Just really don't. Sorry, it's not that great. So yeah, after that they have footage of Edge versus Kane in I think a stretcher match, and after the match Kane loses it, but then he chokeslams Edge and he chokeslams Lita, and so Edge is at home because he got hurt, and so Lita also got hurt, and then there's a backstage segment with Bischoff, Carlito, Caribbean Cool, and Jericho. And Jericho says, I'm going to make sure that Carlito wins tonight because I'd rather have Jericho versus Carlito than Jericho versus John Cena and other stuff like that. So yeah, so they're scheming. They're planning their thing. Which, if you know anything about wrestling in the last 15 or so years, John Cena just wins everything. So that's not going to be a thing. It's not going to be. Carlito's not going to win the WWE title. Like, that was not going to happen. So even people complain about how predictable WWE is now. WWE has always been predictable because it's never had an incentive to not be predictable. So a lot of people don't understand that. They just think that it was not. There was like a time where it was not predictable. It's pretty much always been predictable. Whether it's the Attitude Era 20 years ago, Ruthless Aggression 15 years ago, or the I don't know what you want to call it, era from 10 years ago. The only thing that wasn't really predictable was the Nexus, and maybe maybe the Shield, and maybe CM Punk's pipe bomb. But other than that, man, like, wrestling has always been predictable, and this show right here is the proof of it. Because as soon as that match was made, I'm like, all right, well, Cena's gonna win somehow. I don't know how he's gonna win. He's gonna win. Then McMahon comes out, and he talks about how Raw has hit a milestone. And yes, this show actually was when Raw actually earned that title of longest episodic weekly television show in history. Because August 1st was its 638th or so broadcast, which passed Gunsmoke as the longest episodic show. So McMahon talks about that. He talks about how he'd like to thank the fans, but he's going to thank himself instead, stuff like that. And then he says, there's this one guy, there's one thing that I do is that I sign people who I don't like to join WWE because it's good business. So he talks about how he made Bischoff the GM of Raw because it's good business. He talks about how he did some other stuff because it's good business that he didn't really like to do, but he did it anyways because it's good business. And then he says, this is also going to be a good business decision because this guy's going to have a match at SummerSlam against Edge, and then Matt Hardy comes out. Matt Hardy comes out, and in any other arena, the place would have blown up. But not the Mohegan Sun. This isn't to say that he wasn't getting booed out of the building, but it's just fans didn't really care. They really didn't care. They were just like meh. It was a meh reaction, and so Hardy gets on the mic. Okay, he gets on the mic and begins rolling, and he talks about how he was injured and how he had to stay at home, and how Lita was married to Kane on TV, but was actually going out and spending time with Matt Hardy whenever she was able to come home and stuff. And then he talks about how she cheated on him with Edge, who was like a really good friend, obviously, that kind of stuff. And he goes pretty deep into what he says here. He says, Edge, like, you're miserable. Your life's miserable now. I'm gonna make your life like 10x more miserable. And then he says something like, you will have wished after I'm done with you, you will have wished that you got killed in a car wreck. I was like, damn. Even Jim Ross was like, wow. So yeah, and that match was made. And in the months before this, he actually, and Matt actually says that. Matt Hardy says it. He says, I heard the chants of, you screwed Matt and we want Matt. And yeah, in the shows, and they detail this a lot in the Matt versus Edge rivalries documentary on the network, which I'm actually going to go and watch right after this. I may as well. Just because it's fun and remembering it, I may as well do that. yeah, like there were chants, like a little bit. I'd like to say a little bit either before or after Mania 21 was when you heard audible chants of "You screwed Matt" whenever Lita would do any given segment, whether it was with Edge or with Trish Stratus or whatever. I think it was even before then, because like word had gotten out that she was running around on Matt Hardy with Edge, so they were like blasting her with with all kinds of horrible chants, that you would hear in ECW. I don't want to mention those chants because can't really do that on YouTube channel nowadays. uh, but yeah, so even when McMahon or when any authority figure on TV would come out, whether it was Raw or SmackDown, you'd hear chants of "We want Matt, we want Matt." So it was a big thing, and it's pretty insane how McMahon actually brought Matt Hardy back, because he didn't need to do that. And in this day and age, he probably would not do that, because there's so much talent in WWE currently that you could just be like, whatever, just let him do whatever he wants. Who cares? But back, I guess, in 2005, you really didn't want, I guess, Matt Hardy to go on like TNA Wrestling and start, shooting like crazy. You know what I mean? So maybe that to me, WWE or McMahon bringing back Matt Hardy, kind of showed me that maybe TNA Wrestling had a chance to be comparable to WWE in terms of being a physical competitor with them, similar to AEW now, or not even AEW, WCW was, you know what I mean, 5 years prior, in 2005, because if that were not the case, then McMahon wouldn't care. He'd just be like, whatever, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? But the fans were so adamant about, they could feel Matt Hardy's pain so bad that they would do those "We want Matt" chants all the time. So yeah, and this would start a big rivalry with Matt Hardy and Edge, and it would last a couple months. It would end in October of 2005 during their homecoming, which I do remembers on that. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Possibly. I don't know. 2005 was a pretty significant year in WWE, because you had Batista coming up and being made a new star. You had Cena and that kind of stuff, and then you had WWE going back to USA. That's a big thing, and other stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see. It was a pretty significant year, but yeah. So, and this was right in the middle of the show. So yeah. Matt Hardy comes back, and he would stay with WWE for about 5 or so years until 2010, and then he would just stop after 2010, and he would take some time off, and he would go to TNA Wrestling, and he would start doing drugs and start drinking and stuff in 2011, and then he would recover and stuff like that. But for what it's worth, Matt Hardy's 2005 to 2010 singles WWE run, and he would occasionally join up with Jeff Hardy, who would come back about a year after this. It was pretty good, I think. He won the ECW title too, so yeah, stuff like that. It's pretty decent, and they say this in the documentary, is that the first few matches were kind of not really that great, because Matt was still really mad at Edge, and was still really, really mad at Lita. But going into the fall, when they did a cage match at Unforgiven, which was really good, and then they did a ladder match for Edge's Money in the Bank at Raw Homecoming, which was a loser leaves Raw match also. So yeah, and of course Matt lost that, and then he went to SmackDown and he started feuding with MVP, and I liked that his feud with MVP really really good. Anyways, after this you had Val Venus against Rob Conway, and this was when Rob Conway was kind of like had like almost like a homoerotic gimmick because he had like see-through tights, and I don't know what the hell that was about. I think Rob Conway, uh, is bisexual. I think, or that's what I heard back in the mid 2000s. I don't remember that, but that match was like kind of whatever. And then you have a pretty lengthy segment with Shawn Michaels. So Shawn Michaels does the thing where he impersonates Hulk Hogan. This was great. This was awesome. And it was almost like Shawn Michaels went back to his 1997 self for for a good 20 or so minutes. So he's on like a thing of Larry King live or whatever. They got someone to stand in as Larry King, obviously. And Hogan is just and Michaels is just mocking the shit out of Hulk Hogan. Saying, "Oh, I only go to the big cities. I only go to the big venues. Even though Shawn Michaels will work just as hard in a small venue as he would in a big venue, Hogan only puts in maybe half of his effort in a big venue. That kind of stuff." And he, it's oh man, he just goes on and on and on about that and stuff like that, and you could tell that Shawn Michaels was having fun here, but you could also tell he was kind of trying to really make Hulk Hogan mad, because I think that Hogan told Michaels that he wanted just the match to be just one match instead of three weeks before this. So I think Michaels took exception to that because it was going to be a 3-match series with Michaels winning the first match and then Hogan winning the other two. And I think it was going to end, I don't know, it might have ended at Survivor Series or something like that, I don't know. Or started at SummerSlam and then ended at Survivor Series. I don't know. There's a lot of information on it, probably. I follow a channel called Wrestling Bios. I think Wrestling Bios did a video on it, but I don't really remember. Probably. And I don't have the time to just dig through all that info and stuff like that. I just do not have the time for it. But yes, so yeah. And this would lead to the famous SummerSlam match between Michaels and Hogan, where Michaels would just oversell everything because he was pretty mad at Hulk Hogan. And I would be too. You know what I mean? If you're not going to do business, man, if you're going to just be, a 53-year-old baby about this, then okay, well, then I'm just going to not take this match seriously at all. And that segment with Michaels at the Larry King Live thing was the start of that, in my opinion. And this was, I think, 2 weeks before or after his legendary Who's Your Daddy Montreal promo that he did when Raw was in Montreal. Man, that promo, ooh, that is like, that's one of the best ever. That is one of the best promo segments of all time in all of wrestling. I don't think anyone can disagree with that because it is fantastic. It was fantastic. But let's talk about that. I'd rather talk about this instead. So after that, it shows like a career highlights of Shawn Michaels and stuff, whatever. Yeah. So whatever. And it all ends with Michaels taking off the whole Hulk Hogan thing and being like, "What are you gonna do in reality?" Kicks you in the face, and he kicks the camera and face to bite. Then we have Cena versus Carlito for the WWE title with Jericho as special guest referee. And, Jericho's doing all kinds of crazy stuff to make sure that Carlito gets the pin, but Cena just kicks out of everything. And the match ends with Cena knocking Jericho out. Bischoff's also at ringside. He knocks out Bischoff. And another referee just strolls on in and counts Carlito's shoulders after Cena delivers an FU to Carlito. And this would lead to Jericho versus Michaels at SummerSlam for the WWE title, which I really want Jericho to win. I did not think that John Cena was ready to hold the WWE title in 2005. I think they should have waited about a year or two. Or they should have had him win it transitionally in 2004, because that's when he was like the hottest. Was in like 2003, 2004 was when Cena was really getting good reactions from the fans, and a little bit of 05 as well. But you could tell that even starting with Cena's work in the summer of 2005, that the edge was wearing off on Cena. You know, you weren't hearing him doing any diss raps anymore. Like, people were cheering the shit out of that in 2003, even when he was a bad guy. Start seeing less and less of that. And I think they kind of forced the booking to where he was acting like the Steve Austin type. You know, he was just ruining Bischoff's day and stuff like that. Fans were into it. They weren't booing Cena out of buildings yet. They would start doing that in, I think, like, when he started having, during his match with Jericho, he would start getting booed. But not like getting booed like as soon as his music plays. That wouldn't happen until his match with Triple H at Mania 22. That's when he started getting booed out of buildings. But you could see that kind of happening here. So, yeah. Anyways, that's my little remembering session of this Raw in 2005. I might do something a little different for the next one. I might do a because something else that was really crazy in the summer was Joker Sting 2011. I might do a remembers episode of my top my favorite Joker Sting moments because Joker Sting was just great. And I might just do that the end of the month just to cap off the entire summer. Be sometime in June, July, Sting went off the rails and became Joker Sting, and here's 10 awesome moments of Joker Sting. We'll see. I really do want to talk about Joker Sting though, because Joker Sting is to me, Joker Sting is best Sting. And this is coming from a guy who saw Sting in 1992 when he was the Surfer. You know what I mean? It's the one who saw Crow Sting and was talking about at school in 1997. You know what I mean? So when I say that Joker Sting is best Sting, I got fan cred when I say that. So anyways, yeah. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for listening. It's been really fun talking about this, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.